Welcome to the webcast, How a MAACO Transformation Can Help Increase Business, sponsored by MAACO and produced by ABRN. Today's presentation will examine trends in the marketplace that are impacting today's body shops and demonstrate how you can transform your existing business to potentially generate operating profits of 12 to 20% or more as a MAACO franchisee. This webcast will be presented by Dave Schaefers, Senior Vice President of Franchise Development for Driven Brands, and by Jim Evans, Director of Conversion Strategy for Driven Brands. I'm Bruce Adams, Managing Editor of ABRN, and I'll be the moderator. Now let's get underway. Jim, can you start us off, please?
Bruce, this is Dave Schaefers.
Great. Dave, could you start us off, please?
Sure. My name's Dave Schaefers. I'm with Driven Brands. I'm the Senior Vice President of Franchise Development for our company. For those of you who are not familiar with Driven Brands, we are the parent company of MAACO, Meineke, and a company called AUTOMOTIVE. The slide's right there for you. Interesting company, and that each of our brands all started in 1972. I think many people are familiar with Tony Martino and his introduction of MAACO, but also we have iconic brands such as Meineke and AUTOMOTIVE, and then several companies called Drive and Style and AutoQual.
So you are speaking to, when you're talking to us here today, we are here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Driven Brands is our parent company with ownership of the locations you see there, nearly 1,600 across the country.
So just going into some history of the company, MAACO again started in 1972 and has gone from really one store in 1972 to over 440 locations to 2011. In 2008, which was a big year for MAACO, the acquisition from MAACO to Driven Brands took place, and that was a big change in that a number of processes that you'd see in a Meineke system had gone into the MAACO system. So what we're talking about here today is the MAACO Advantage and what we're trying to do.
The MAACO Advantage program is basically a conversion program that allows open and operating independent collision and body shop facilities who have the need and desire to transform their business from what is traditionally a DRP shop into a combined DRP retail shop in order to compensate for the loss of revenues with industry trends driven downward by the DRPs, which we find to be a common thread throughout the industry as we speak to independent shops. And you see a quote here from one of our franchisees in Roanoke, Virginia, that equaled what he made in 3 to 4 months, 9 months beforehand. So certainly the model has proven to be, with many folks, a very compelling story moving forward.
Sorry, Bruce, had a problem with my throat there. Anyway, we want to talk about who this program's for and who this program is not for. This is going to be a 35-minute presentation, and we want to make sure that we don't waste your time if the requirements that we need don't really apply to you. Who should consider MAACO? Existing owners who have seen a steady decline in their business, and clearly with some of the body shop reports and some of the surveys, there's been a big decline in the number or the revenue dollars that are out there in the industry. I think existing owners who see value in adding incremental revenues in addition to their DRP model. One thing that the MAACO transformation is doing is to add additional volume through a customer pay and a retail model. We're not looking to completely overhaul anybody's existing base. We've done to date around 12 conversions. Many of these centers have had DRP relationships and have added on to that. Some have moved more into a production paint model, which we'll get more into. The other one is existing owners looking to improve the value of their business. One thing that we have found is that MAACO, because it is a brand and it's got strong recognition, 93% national brand recognition, becomes a sellable entity. And I think if I'm running a Bob's Collision and I'm running it, at 500,000 or 600,000 a year, who's my buyer? And if it's not a consolidator, how am I going to sell this business, and how am I going to help my family and my next generation when we sell the business? And we know that Maaco provides, significant brand recognition, and people are much more willing to buy into a brand where there's training and support and advertising and all the things that you'd find in a franchise. What we're looking for, guys, is centers with at least 6,000 square feet or larger with ample parking, and that's very critical. Our turnaround time, we're hoping, is around 72 hours. We're not looking to keep vehicles, for a week or 2 weeks or whatnot. We're trying to move through our production model. We typically are looking for vehicle populations with, in a 6-mile population, 45,000 registered vehicles. That's important. One is because about 80% of the work that we do is through customer pay and through the vehicle population around your center. But in addition, we offer Maaco centers have about 20% of the business through fleet, retail, and trade, or through fleet and trade. The other thing, and I want to make a very big point of it, is when we select a center for the conversion program, we want to be thoughtful to the existing Maaco centers that are around there. So every conversion opportunity will go through a deep dive into the impact, or if there's any encroachment to an existing centers. We believe in the metrics that we use and how many stores can fit within an MSA or a CBSA, and so that's part of what we're doing. And the cost to have us look at your store and to give you an evaluation, whether it be a yes or no, is nothing. So we encourage everybody to apply. The other thing too is we want to make sure, well, as far as the location, Maaco, we have stores currently in retail. I think retail is the preferable, but we also have stores or centers in industrial markets. And I think the heavier the population in an industrial, the industrial may work. The less populated the retail is probably the more favorable. But we can go through and take a look at that for every single center. We've got the great analytics that we use to determine what would be a viable center or not, and we would use that reporting system on yours. The other thing is you got to have time on your lease. If we're going to invest in the time to analyze a center to be a Maaco, then we got to make sure that there's enough time on it. As far as who we are and where we may differ is really two different kinds of models. A collision center, in our view, is a center that's dealing 90 to 95% DRP work and is generating a lot of business through the insurance. At Maaco, we're seeing maybe around 10% of our work come through the DRP model. The profit margins, if you see on comment 1, are different. The primary revenue streams are different. And so it's just a very different model. And we'll go through that. The next slide has got a little deeper dive on what are the differences between what you're currently doing today and what you are and what you could be doing as a Maaco center. So based on the AAIA fact book from 2012, profit margins in the independent body shop are 5 to 9% off sales. On Maaco, in our FDD, which is a franchise disclosure document, it's 12 to 20%. Independent shops are heavily dependent on DRP. Maaco's not. If you surveyed collision centers, most DRP shops are losing revenues or profits every year. Maaco is seeing same-store sales increases for the last 3 years. And these things are important, and that's where a brand recognition really kind of steps in and makes a big difference. As far as fleet opportunities, Maaco has a full-time VP of fleet and national accounts. Today, about 20% of the vehicles coming through or revenues coming through are coming in through accounts that have been set up. And then the start of converting your center from a Maaco or from an independent to a Maaco is a small number, and we can get into that. The company has pre-approved financing to help anybody who's interested. Just a quick comment, too, is we had recently done a survey no older than 2 weeks ago, and we surveyed 12 of the centers that actually had gone through and had converted from an independent, and some were more of a paint production, some were very collision heavy, and almost unanimously all of our conversion centers, the folks who actually run them, had agreed, one, that they were happy that they did it, that they made the right choice. Two, that they believe that the product purchases are much more favorable since they joined MAACO. And three is that the exit strategy and the value of their business went up. And at the end of this webinar, we're going to have you talk to Jim Evans, and we're going to offer a list of all those conversion candidates and the folks who have actually made the move, their phone numbers and contact information for you all to call. I'm going to let Jim Evans introduce himself right now. He's going to get a little bit into the MAACO Advantage and give you some of the highlights and reasons why we think that this may be a compelling interest to you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. As we progress through the slides, you can see the MAACO Advantage program. As you look at the MAACO model, I think as Dave stated earlier, it's an incremental model that represents 90% non-DRP driven type of work, and it's the volume is 2 to 3 times what you'd recognize in an ordinary conventional repair shop model. We try to run 25 to 30 tickets a week through a conventional MAACO shop. Average repair of $780 to $800, higher margin, lower cost of materials and supplies, lower cost of labor, and incremental type of business that gives you hopefully 25 completed jobs every week. That translates over 50 weeks to a pretty substantial revenue stream and around 8 cars a day as opposed to 8 or 9 cars in a week. Continuing on, this MAACO's retail operation, it's 100% incremental growth to your business and somewhat recession resistant. We talked earlier about the fact that the DRP models, they are very, very hyper competitive. They pitch shop against shop, and sometimes they are slow pay and margins are always being squeezed. MAACO doesn't focus there. We focus on that cosmologian work and incremental growth to your business. And as you can see, MAACO is non-DRP reliant, and the average MAACO center sales average over $1 million is $1.3 million. As you can see on a DRP program here, the average body shop, the larger it gets, the more reliant it is on DRP, therefore the more risk you're managing day to day. And as if you look at the 2001 body shop business, the industry profile, you can see DRP and non-DRP are very challenged in terms of where their total business environment is going and their revenue streams. Why MAACO? A great many reasons, and we'll elaborate on some of those here shortly. The earnings potential is substantial, and as we've already spoken about, the revenues are incremental. The buying power, as you'll see with all the major suppliers, PP&G, Sherwin-Williams, DuPont, all the major paint suppliers, we have a tremendous relationship along with FinishMaster and all those related companies. It creates an indisputable exit growth strategy, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the road. You've got 90% plus brand awareness with MAACO, and when it comes time to develop that exit strategy, what's easier to divest, an independent shop or a branded shop? And I think that answer is fairly evident. No national competition. There are many imitators out there, but as far as the development of the cosmologian model, which is 45% paint, 55% spot repair and paint, that's where MAACO focuses its work on this $40 billion plus industry, and that's where the margins are. That's where the incremental revenue, the self-pay and self-directed pay models are substantially more higher margin and more volume and more throughput into your shop. With 40 years experience, MAACO has gotten this down, as you can imagine, and with 460 plus successful operations out there, it's a totally different model than used to. But to Dave Schaefers' point earlier, does it mean that if you're currently in the DRP business that you have to extricate yourself from that or eliminate that? You can blend it together. Virtually everybody that converts does. but it's, as he stated before, around 90% of our work is non-DRP. Moving on, we won't read the testimonials to you. Word for word, you can certainly see that Robert Belcher in Roanoke had some very positive things to say in terms of how many estimates he's writing. And our friend Bob Grimes in Monroeville points out that MAACO's with you every step of the way throughout the relationship. You don't get a signed package and the Polaris system and hand it to you and we walk away. It's a collaborative partnership all the way through. Moving on, the perfect storm in the automotive aftermarket. We all know the recession that everyone's been through, and ironically, it is not counterintuitive. It is right in line with what expectations would be given these changes. Number of vehicles on the road will continue to go up, and the average age of vehicles, which up until 4 years ago for 20 years was around 8.5, is now approaching 12 years. By 2015, I believe it's 11.5 now. Well, what does that spell for the automotive aftermarket? People hold on to cars longer. They're looking for long and short-term maintenance solutions and repair opportunities. And as far as the paintless dent and repair and the cosmolition model, MAACO has no competitor nationally on a franchise level. That's a nice position to be in. Numbers of mile driven continue to go up with all the dynamics relative to what's going on in the industry today, and that's one of the most important key performance indicators in the industry. And lastly, with 4,000 less car dealerships from what there were a few years ago, there are just that many more repair centers, that many more opportunities for the automotive aftermarket. Of course, MAACO benefits by that as well. And here's even more evidence, more proof that in the deepest recession any of us have seen in our lifetimes, in all likelihood, this business continues to grow and is now up over 43 billions. That is billions, folks, and the business will show that same trend in 2013. MAACO certainly continues to get its portion of that. In other industry trends, as you look at not surprisingly, as you look at the average independent shop, and our body shop business 2011 profiles our source for this, the average independent shop is around $690,000. The average MAACO shop over $1 million is at $1.3 million. So the ability to create that incremental revenue and drive that sales number back up, in addition to the throughput. And remember the throughput, if you're running 3 times as many people through your shop, that's 3 times as many people that are out in the community with repeat and referral advertising for you, talking across the fence or at a Saturday barbecue, letting folks know what a great job you did for them. That's free advertising, and to have that kind of customer base that doubles or triples as a result of becoming a MAACO franchisee is nothing but good news. MAACO today, as I spoke earlier, and MAACO heavily focusing on their revenues are generated from spot repair and from paint, and that's 56 and 44%. Do not focus on the heavy crash jobs and the 3 and 4 week jobs that are several $1,000s. And as we spoke before, regardless of repair, we try to do it in 72 hours. And Dave will talk a little bit here about, a little further into the presentation, about the incredible opportunity with $40 million a year in sales and fleet accounts for those folks at MAACO, those franchisees that want to avail themselves of that opportunity. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Jim. And I'd just like to challenge the people on the phone and the good business owners on the phone today. Is you saw 2 slides. You saw a slide on the automotive industry showing growth in every really major category. We've indicated at MAACO for the last 3 years we've seen a same-store sales increase, and then if you look at the comparison of the average independent versus the average MAACO, if your business is not growing, then the question you got to ask is why. And it could be execution, it could be a number of things, or it could be the simple fact that you're a victim of the industry trends. The compelling thing that has happened here at MAACO is the franchisees that have converted have all shown growth, and they've shown growth by remodeling and reimaging their business to take on that retail customer. If you look at the facility, this is a standard 7,200 square foot facility, and the best way to look at it, it really is a horseshoe. You've got starting with the waiting room over here, you've got the cars coming in. They're getting sanded, they're getting bonded, they're getting masked, they're getting painted, dried, detailed, and out. And it's really a very efficient production model. Clearly the cost of goods on paint is different than on major collision, but this model is very important. So if you're sitting there and thinking you have interest and you're running a 3,000-4,000 square foot shop, it's unless you upgrade to a larger facility, it's not gonna happen. You've got to have the ability to do it. I think our franchisees would tell you the bigger the facility, the better. Our standard footprint is 7,200 with a little bit of space. Even in these the size of facilities, there's more equipment. The more heavy collision you get into, it can accommodate that type of equipment that's needed. As far as what the revenues look like, what we've done is we've taken a section from our franchise disclosure document, and we can provide that to anybody who is interested and wants to apply for more information. But this is what the average MAACO that's doing over $1 million in revenue looks like. In our disclosure document, we break down every kind of quartile category of sales. Centers that are doing less than 750 and over $1 million. So you can kind of take a look at where owners are at and what kind of money they're making. Clearly, the things that we're proud of here is that the stores doing over $1 million are averaging $1.3 million. That's a very impressive number, knowing that we're not very heavy DRP related or very little DRP based business. We believe that our labor costs are in line. Clearly, our cost of goods line at 21% is a very low number. If you look at the gross profit and moving on, the numbers are very much in line. In franchising, one way that you would look at a business to see if it's a good franchise business is you look at the revenues to investment. In franchising, 2.5 to 2 is kind of what the average is. Well, a new MAACO, if you were going to convert, costs around $300,000, and we are actually doing revenues, in excess of 3 times that on the average. So the business model makes a lot of sense. I'm sure everybody on the phone is sitting here thinking, well, I'm not spending advertising, I'm not paying royalties today, and that's if you're ever to move forward as one of those things that just needs to be discussed and understood. Under the Advantage program, we help you with the royalties, and that we discount them for the first 3 years. But taking that aside, what this model is demonstrating, and what we'd like to sit down and talk to everybody about, is that our model with the royalties and advertising works. The amount of money that you save on product, the amount of revenues that you increase your store by, the amount of cars that come in, and estimates work under this model, and it's because of the marketing and advertising that allows you to get to that level. And so very compelling numbers in the automotive industry, and in franchising, this is one of the top producing businesses out there. As far as training and support, we are very different than companies like CarStar, who I think service a very good core group of the collision industry. I think our experience is telling us that the CarStar customer is not necessarily the MAACO customer. What we want to do is find strong operators who've got a desire to succeed, that again may have lost some revenues through loss of insurance accounts, and try to teach them the retail model. And we've got a very compelling training program. We have if you sign up, we have a 4-week training program in Charlotte. We're going to teach you everything that we know about MAACO. After that takes place, when you actually go to your center, we're going to be there 6 of the first weeks in the first 3 to 4 months. So we're going to not just sell you a license and say, hey, go be MAACO. We're there, and we very much care how you answer your phone, how you write up a ticket, how your waiting room looks, what's the customer experience. And the retail model is very different than just the collision transactional model. You can see where we spend our time training, but we obsess about it, and the tools that we use are terrific. The next slide is called the MAACO Dealer Access. The MAACO Dealer Access is an online portal where you can see what the sales have been regionally all across the United States, what specials are out there. You can see on this slide we've got a convention going on. We've got all kinds of programs. Everything you need to know is on here. You got a problem, you can go on to a blog and talk to your peers and ask them what's going on or how did you handle this program. You want to know about our fleet accounts, our national accounts, we've got that here. You want to know about our Meineke MAACO credit card, we've got that here. We continue to update and educate this information to keep franchisees informed. And one thing that we focus on, and we're really focusing on, is transparency. We want our franchisees to know what we're doing. If we're putting a store in a market, we want them to know that a new franchisee is coming to the market. So it's supposed to be a very, the goal of our company is the more transparency, the healthier the system. Our POS system that we use today is Polaris. It's been with MAACO for many years. One of the benefits of being with Driven Brands is now we're starting to retool some of the IT technology that our store used at Meineke and at MAACO. We are upgrading and improving our systems. The system was made for an owner-operator model, but we know that there's people like Phil Collins in Charlotte, North Carolina, who have 4, 5, 6 stores, and we've got to create a system that allows them to manage multiple units. So the functionality of Polaris is good on the POS side, but it's also being developed for more than the single store owner. As far as national trade and fleet accounts, I'll start with our conversion franchisee in Monroeville, PA. I've never had trade accounts. Now I've got 10 to 11 a week. When you're with MAACO, you're not alone. We've got, we are a royalty-based company. We're not, our goal isn't to make money on advertising. We are a royalty-based company, and the way that we make money is by having our centers make more money and have more revenues, and that's really the goal. We've got a gentleman by the name of Frank Petrain who does an amazing job creating these accounts, through trade, fleet, and insurance. Clearly MAACO is not the DRP account that you'd see in a normal traditional collision center, but it's something that's on our radar. Jason Ryan, who's our COO, has had a big focus with our franchisees getting their ICAR certifications and moving down that road. We have a healthy paint and production retail model, and there's so much we view that we can add to it that where does the sky end? And we think that there's plenty of opportunity. As far as MAACO advertising, where MAACO differs from our other company, Meineke, is MAACO is all is local advertising based. There's no syndication. This is all co-ops of stores within markets. You can see that 79% of what we do is local television. We have a MAACO Bowl that is actually going to be our last year right now in Las Vegas. But we do radio, yellow pages. We do SEO, search engine optimization, making sure that when somebody goes into the computer and says, hey, I need my car painted, that MAACO shows up number 1. As far as the way that you may have viewed MAACO, and if you've been a collision owner for many years, you think of the presidential paint service. We've moved away from that. One thing that we have learned is that when you market to consumers, the broadest place you could market is choice. And at Meineke, we have my Meineke promotion going right now, very similar here into the waiting room. On the paint production side and on the collision side, the customer and the manager are allowed to build tickets based on the level of quality of the service that they want. Some people can only afford a lower service, and some people want everything. And so we're able to put that together in the merchandising system since we have put into our centers, I think 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, has really proved to do a great job. As far as the supply chain, probably one of the biggest impacts it'll have to your bottom line. If you have deep interest in what we're doing, we'd be happy to sit down and go through what you're paying versus what would happen if you were a MAACO. But because there's no national competitor on the paint production side, MAACO is an 8,000-pound gorilla. And because of that, we've got strong relationships with companies like DuPont, Sherwin-Williams, FinishMaster. That will turn to you in terms of dollars. I mean, you'll be able to buy off the volumes of what 450 other stores are doing. As far as the cost to get into MAACO, I'm going to have Jim Evans go through this. We really don't need to do the comparison of what it would cost to do a new store. We'll just tell you what the average cost of converting your center has been through the 12 that we've done, and then we'll also talk a little bit more about the results of the 12 stores.
As you can see, in consideration of the fact that you are an open and operating collision repair facility, MAACO has discounted the fees substantially for you. The license fee itself is discounted to $15,000. The training, there is no charge for the training. As Dave mentioned, the presence in your store for a number of weeks, getting up and running during the first couple of months. The advertising charge of $15,000 is actually escrow. That's your money. That's money spent on you. It's not actually a fee. So you've got that's in conjunction with MAACO, the MAACO home office, and the advertising group. You'll decide how best to spend in the first 90 days that $15,000 to launch your store. So for $30,000 and one other cost, which is the cost of signage, you can be up and running in as little as 90 to 120 days after completion of training and all the requirements involved. So quite a good story is in terms of the affordability of such a great national brand.
Just looking at some of the quotes, the first quote is from a gentleman in Lake Forest, California, who is running actually a very solid collision business. He was in an area with a high fixed cost basis, made a decision that he needed more to raise his revenues, and has done a great job. His comment, I think, is very compelling. My franchise fees are more than offset by the higher volume I'm doing now. The store in Monroeville, which we've already talked about, 10 to 11 fleet accounts a week. The third one is an interesting one. We had converted almost half a dozen Earl Scheibs when they went out of business 3 years ago. And for the most part, they're doing fantastic with us. And probably the best story that we have in the system is a gentleman out of Roanoke, Virginia, that in 3 to 4 months as a MAACO equaled what he made in 9 months beforehand. Great owner, great operator. He's a single store market. Went in there and did everything we asked of him as far as following the system, making the facility look like what it needed to look like, putting the production model in. Could not be happier. Again, all of these people are available for you to talk to, and the story is just really amazing. The next slide. This slide is probably not as appropriate for the people on this call. This would be more for somebody who is buying a new license and has never been in this business. We appreciate everybody on the phone, and we appreciate that you've all been in the business. We understand the importance of changing a business model and the courage that it takes to do that. We want to work with anybody who has interest, and we want to make this an educational series. And we want to make sure that any questions you have are answered, that you can validate the questions, that you can talk to our franchisees, that you can talk to our regional vice presidents of operations, that you can talk to everybody that will help you educate to make a good decision. But for me, in having franchised for 24 years now, I've never seen a program that has been put together that has changed so many owner and operators' business lives. And these words are much better spoken from the franchisees who are in the field, again, who you'd have access to talk to. But if your business is going the wrong way in a market where everything is showing that you should be going up, then you really got to do something. And you've got to either do better at what you do now, or you've got to make a change. And we believe that the MAACO Advantage and transformation provides really one of the best opportunities out there. And learning that retail model provides more cars, better costs, and a stronger exit strategy. And it also provides for those who are motivated an avenue to grow. These are businesses that you can grow, that have value, that have national brand value, that have something that people will buy because they know that it's backed by a parent company and backed by somebody who's going to teach them how to do it. So for those reasons, we think that MAACO is a very good program. It's not for everybody. If you're sitting there doing $1.5 million, $2 million, this is probably not your business. You'd be saying, well, why would I go to MAACO when I'm already doing this? It may not be for you. It may be. But for the person who is a good operator, has a good location, and is a victim of what's taking place today, we believe that this is an exceptional model.
Thank you, Jim and Dave, for this comprehensive look at the MAACO business model. We'd like to take this opportunity to solicit questions from our viewers. If you have a question to ask and you haven't already done so, simply type it up and submit it to us through the channel provided. Our first question is, do we have to have a perfectly rectangular shop to institute the MAACO production model?
That's a great question, and the answer is no. We've done some inner city shops. We've done different some split buildings where they did the detail in one and the actual paint in the other. So what we would do, and again, the cost to inquire is nothing, but what we would do is we would look at your facility. We would, one, make sure that the demographics worked. Two, we would make sure that the facility could actually work to do up to 8 cars a day. And then three, would make sure that it didn't encroach upon any of our valued existing franchisees. And if all those things work and you have the desire, then it's something we would continue to pursue along.
What is the approximate cost of signage, and is it a standard sign package that you offer?
Well, first of all, having opened up hundreds and hundreds of stores, there is no standard because every city is different and every zoning is different. Typically, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000 in signage costs, and that's a marquee and that's signage on the facility. We do have, and I failed to mention it in this presentation, a relationship with a company called Mount Pleasant Capital, where we are actually guaranteeing a portion of each and every loan. And it's not a rubber stamp, but because we're putting our name on it, these loans have a high likelihood of getting approved, and particularly to guys who have been in the business already.
If I join the MAACO team, how long will it be before my shop will start seeing measurable results?
That's a question that you could get stuck on from my end. What we can do is give you the phone number to everybody that has done a conversion through us. We have a list of everybody that has done it. We have gone back and we have analyzed, and we had missed some data on what the pre-opening sales were, but I will tell you that everybody that has gone through our system, with the exception of one, has seen dramatic increases in revenues. And the best person to get this is probably not from the guys who are trying to sell it, but from the actual franchisees. And we'll give you the phone numbers to each and every person that has done it, and across the board they will validate this program.
You showed some DRP relationships for MAACO. Can you explain how that works in terms of what stores get access to the DRP relationships?
Again, good question. It really goes to the history. I mean, MAACO is a brand that's been around since 1972. Obviously, our franchisees who have been in our business longer, have created higher skill sets, have gone through the ARC certification, and through their efforts and through our efforts of pushing, they've gotten to that level. One thing that MAACO wouldn't do is we wouldn't take a franchisee who has never done production paint, or for that matter collision, and say, okay, you're now an insurance company. You all know that this is about quality, PSI ratings, and doing it right. And so it's really about the skill level of the owner who's getting the DRPs. But we do promote through our conventions and through the ops the ICAR certifications that move them towards that goal.
You mentioned the retail model versus the collision model. My business is heavy collisions, so would this model work for me?
The model could work for you by having incremental business. What we wouldn't want to, if you're doing $700,000 in work today, the goal isn't to take that $700,000, draw a line in it and start over. The goal is to do what you're doing today and to add on that production paint model. And I think Peter Captivelli out in Lake Forest is a good example of a guy who is a very good collision guy who added on, the MAACO retail system, and the combination of both, and for him at least, proved to be very successful.
What is the average volume for an average MAACO store?
It's just under 1 million. We can, if somebody wants information on that, we can send them again the FDD, and they can look at. I think we have 440 stores or 50 stores in the system. I think we put into this report all stores that have been open more than 2 years, and so anybody on the phone can get that information and look at all the data themselves.
And this question is asking about territory rights. How far away from an existing MAACO do you have to be, or must you be, to open another MAACO?
Yep, another good question. It depends on the market. Not every market is the same. You have different densities. Clearly a store in New York or New Jersey is different than a store out in Dallas, Texas. And so what we would do is, typically it's going to be 5 miles, although we have a lot of stores that are under that. But what we would do is we would take your proposed location, and we would take the closest center to your store. And say this center was 8 miles away. We've got the ability to do an impact analysis. We can take their customers and see how many live in your 2-mile ring from the proposed location. If the impact is too high and it's going to do damage to the other brand or to the other center, then we're not going to do it. What we believe is in markets, by population, that having more MAACO's spread out properly gives more advertising and raises the chain and raises that particular market. And so that's kind of the goal of our site selection.
Do you have any shops that are part of new car dealerships, or is there any potential conflict between MAACO and the OEM automobile manufacturers?
We don't. We've actually had some franchisees have taken over closed car dealerships and converted them over actually into Meineke and MAACO. But we don't have any dealerships right now that are doing MAACO within their center. In Canada, they tried some, and just the mentality of a car dealer, they never embraced the retail model. It wasn't very successful up in Canada, but in the U.S. we don't have any right now.
Are the advertising fees the same across for all MAACO stores?
The answer is today the contracts are all the same. So one is the contracts are all the same, but every market is different. And through the co-op, the number could change. You could have some markets where they're spending $800 a week, or you could have some markets where there's a lot of stores and you're spending more, but that's determined by the franchisees and the company. So that number can definitely change. But again, if you look at the FDD, our disclosure document, the average is the average, and the average percentage is the average percentage, and the average earnings is the average earnings.
What percent of the collision repair business does MAACO represent, and how is that percentage changing?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that depending on what side of the Mason-Dixon line, it's going to be 50% paint, 50% collision. We are about a $500 million company, so $250 million in collision-ish, $250 million in paint. Put that against a $40 billion industry.
How long are the franchise terms?
A franchise agreement is for 15 years with renewal options.
And are there underperforming existing MAACO shops for sale to someone who owns a body shop?
To somebody who owns a body shop, the answer could be yes if the body shop was willing to convert their center over to MAACO. We try to enforce the non-compete. I think having an owner with a collision center and wanting MAACO on the side, although we've had a lot of requests and a lot of interest, we just don't have that in our system today, no.
Okay. Do I have to shut down my existing collision business in order to add MAACO?
Assuming this is a one-store business we're talking about, no, you wouldn't close down your business. There would be a transition, but it's not like CarStar where you keep your name on it and then kind of MAACO in the corner in a little box. What we're talking about is a transformation into a MAACO center, and so that business would be branded into a MAACO. But there's no period of closure, and if there was any, it's just through the TIs or if somebody had to upgrade a booth or that type of stuff. But we're talking days, if that.
I have issues hiring qualified technicians. Is there some way that MAACO can help me hire good quality employees?
Yeah. First of all, like every franchise company, we are not the operators of the store. The franchisee is. But that being said, we have a system built with operations managers, with regional vice presidents, operations managers under them, and then a whole host of franchisees. I mean, you got to realize if we were one of the conglomerates, we would be the biggest with 450. We're the biggest collision chain out there. And through that, you have franchisees, and we're able to help find and help support stores as needed.
How do we keep our referral independent to our shop, as well as would we be able to have our own area-specific social media?
The second question first. Every store is going to have their own. So our marketing is local and not national. So the answer is yes. I mean, when you come in, you're going to have your own website. You're going to have, you will fall in through the national website, and that is all optimized through SEO. And so the answer to that is yes. And can you repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, the first part is how do we keep our referral independent to our shop?
I'm assuming what he's asking is how do his current referral business. And my answer to that would be continue what you've been doing, run a good business, continue the business that you have today. Where we see our role is adding incremental volume to what you're doing now, plus creating a retail model that you do not have today and that nobody else can offer.
Is MAACO able to help stores meet EPA standards and other regulatory requirements?
Absolutely. Again, the action of having things done and completed is going to be the franchisee in the store, but we do have people who have got expertise in all of these areas, and we're here to help you. And so you have somebody, you have a corporate office, you have an operations manager, somebody to help you with what you ever need on the EPA or OSHA. The other thing that I'd like to say is being the largest paint production company out there, our relationships with Sherwin-Williams and DuPont and PP&G are huge. I was in a store down in Orlando and come to find out that does really big numbers. That Sherwin-Williams is down there, almost weekly helping that store out with what they're doing. So there's lots of support, and it comes in many different ways.
And our final question, unless we get any more submitted in the next minute or so, is who do you perceive as your main competitors in this space?
It's the mom and pop. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of mom and pop operators out there. If you said who is our main competitor in paint production, I would say there's not many out there. I mean, to everybody on this webinar, ask yourself a question. If I brought my car into your store and asked you to paint it, could you do it for $800, $900 or $1,000? And I don't think there's a lot of those out there. So it's really the independents. We view our model as a very strong model. And just to throw it out there, if anybody's out there and looking to sell their store in a market where we have people that are looking to buy stores, we may be an opportunity. Our growth strategy is very simple. We are going into markets, first of all, where there's no franchisees, and we're identifying where in those markets we want to be, and then we're out there looking at the stores in the market and then calling those stores in the market after we have rated them and inviting them to this conversion program. And we see a lot of value in that.
And we did get one more question submitted since I asked the last one, so this will probably be our final question. Can you talk a little bit about the rate at which, the failure rate at which franchisees do not succeed under your business model?
Yeah, that information is in our FDD, and for anybody who's interested, we can send that information to them. I think in franchising and whether it's a Meineke or MAACO or whatever, the unit economics need to make sense. And so, having the right person, the right location, somebody who is proper, and then at the end of the day, having somebody who follows the system. And when those things happen, things typically work out well, but you all know this business isn't for everybody. But talking to this group is very different because everybody here has done it. So the failure rate is in there. Anybody who wants the information can take a look at it, and we'd be happy to send it out to them.
And then another question that just came in, does MAACO have a franchise association? If so, is it voluntary to join?
I don't know the details on the association. I think if somebody wanted interest, that they could absolutely contact the corporate office and find out information about it. The purpose of this presentation was really to explain kind of the benefits of MAACO. But if that was an interest, somebody could email me or email one of the folks at the Brandon operations and get that information.
Okay, well, thank you once again to Jim Evans and Dave Schaefers for presenting this comprehensive information on the MAACO business model. Finally, would like to thank also those of you who joined us for this webcast. And if you'd like to view this webcast again, or if you'd like to share it with others who were unable to participate, the webcast will soon be archived at abrn.com/MAACO webinar. Once again, that web address is abrn.com/MAACO webinar. Thank you and have a great afternoon.